Australia. The cast for today's opening blast is a promoter's dream. Defending champ Dick Johnson and teammate John Bow spearhead the shell attack. What's this? Peter Brock aboard a Ford? You'd better believe it. So too is Glenn Seaton, Bathurst winner Tony Longhurst, and the super vet you can bank on, Alan Moffat. Jim Richards and George Fury team up in their nippy Nissans. Colin Bond's here to gas and go, and so too at Team Toyota. During the next 3 hours, we'll update everything on 2 and 4 wheels, both here and overseas. So settle back and buckle up for motorsport in the award-winning 7 style. Presented for your enjoyment by Toyota. Oh, what a feeling. By Caltex. Let Caltex share the driving with you. And by the ANZ. Competitive by nature.
Thank you, Mike Raymond. Yes, hello and welcome to another season of sensational motorsport on 7, the Australian television network exclusively bringing you the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship for 1989. A whole new ball game, a lot of new cars, a lot of new teams, a lot of driver changes to get used to. But of course, we've got that first round coming up here today, plus a lot else. Let's hope we have a good day for it. The weather's been a bit changeable here in Sydney the last few days, but the forecast today, mild, warm, humid, possible late showers. That might really set the cat among the pigeons for the touring car race, which of course will be the highlight of our program. But as I said, it's not the only event. We've got a whole great supporting cast of races, including the Formula Ford Driver to Europe first round. And this category has also expanded enormously. Let's check what is an enormous grid with Neil Crompton.
Thank you, Gary Wilkinson. 31 cars on the circuit at the moment for this first round of the Motorcraft Driver to Europe Series and the first round of the Coke Series, and Paul Stokel in the Elwyn has pole a 61.6 from Mark Larkham in the Van Diemen a 62.7. Row 2, Gary Jones sharing that row with Brett Peters, the Van Diemen and the Swift. They both got into the 63s. Row 3, Troy Dunstan and Paul Morris in the Van Diemens. Row 4, position 7, Russell Ingle and also Peter Dane making his first run in the Formula Ford. From position 9, John Blanchard, car number 38. Position 10, car 91 is Ian Allen. From position 11, car 77 is which is run here at Amaroo Park throughout the AMSCAR series. Gary Jones, car number 6, he's carried Symmons race cam for us in the past. Less than 10 seconds before the start, they get away cleanly. And what a brilliant leap from Mark Larkham. The pole sitter's gone back to third, just tangling wheels a little bit as he heads up to the top of the hill. And as always, it's an enormous strength of drivers and cars in this category. Look at the lead that Mark Larkham has as they go through Dunlop for the first time, Mike.
Oh, Stokel in some problems and one going very, very wide indeed through Dunlop Loop for the first time. But you'll notice that Larkham has increased his lead as they come down towards Mazda Corner. And that is a big break over the field inside half a lap. Stokel trying to come back through the pack, but Larkham will lead through Honda on his way now to the Lake Corner. Brilliant start.
Field heading down towards the slowest part of the course, the stop right-hander, before they come round to complete lap number 1 of 15. And Larkham, with support this year from Van Diemen Australia. There's the pole sitter, Tasmania, car number 26. And Larkham's got a nice comfortable break over Gary Jones here in car 6 at the moment. I bumped into Martin Carpenter just a few minutes before we came on air, and he's unfortunately spectating this weekend. He ran in Formula Ford last year very strongly. He's looking to put together a deal at the moment to run in the Gold Star Championship of 89 for Formula Holden.
At the moment, though, the big scrap here is second place. Gary Jones holding down second at the moment. Stokel just behind him, the man who sat on pole for this race from Tasmania. Big things expected of him. And, of course, another Tasmanian today, John Bow, in the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship.
Paul's just regathering his momentum at the moment in third position and working away on the back of Gary Jones. Jones with Westfield support again this year. And those 3 cars, the head of the field now starting to open up a pretty hefty gap over 4th and 5th. And that's a fairly tight battle as well, as you can see.
2 laps completed, 13 remain in the opening round of the Motorcraft Formula Ford Driver to Europe Series. Oh, there's one gone, 38's around, sideways.
John Blanchard saved the day, didn't nail anything. We might take a look at a replay of this incident, just see exactly what happened to him. He looked to be totally in control there as he came over the top of the hill, and then it got all ugly and out of shape for him. He just ran out of road by the look of it, tapped the gearbox of the car in front, and was lucky not to go out into the marbles and clout the wall. He ran into the back of Troy Dunstan.
2 cars in front of him there, in fact, were the team cars of Troy Dunstan and Paul Morris, both in brand new Van Diemen RF89s, the same as the car that the leader is driving at the moment.
That's not a Sydney voice, that's the voice of our British correspondent, Richard Hay, who joins us for his first look at racing Amaroo style for the opening round of the Touring Car Championship, and a very busy little circuit.
A very busy circuit indeed, but it's interesting to see there as the leader goes through there, car number 5, Mark Larkham, that the man in third place is driving a very old car, but one which handles very well, and this is the sort of circuit where handling is at a form.
You may recall to your trip to Bathurst last year, Richard, in the Formula Ford support race to the Tooheys 1000, that Wally Story went very well in an older Elvin. Well, Wally's the guy that's looking after Paul Stokell, the pole sitter for this event today, and he's in third place just on the left-hand side of screen. That gives you an idea of the gaps between first, second and third. So Larkham, the leader in the Coffee Ford entry in the Van Diemen. Then Gary Jones also in the Van Diemen, and there's third, Paul Stokell, car number 26, and being looked after by Wally Story, who's been involved in Formula Ford racing in Australia for many, many years as an engineer and a competitor.
I thought he was Formula Ford racing.
He just about is, you're right. He wandered up to tell us before that he's come across this new lad from down south who he claims is just fantastic, and he's certainly proving that at the moment. Terrific time in practice, a 61.6 versus Larkham's 62.7, although conditions yesterday weren't conducive to good close qualifying, because 1 minute it was dry, then Sydney skies would open up and turn the place into a complete mess. Gary Jones defending pretty well here at the moment, and Paul just trying to figure out a way past the second place holder.
What happened to Gary Jones' touring car plans?
Good question.
Because, I mean, he was all gung-ho, wasn't he, to go Group A this year?
It's a question of raising the finance. The plans are the easy things to develop. It's a question of finding the money, and I think that's been the stumbling block.
Even in this category today, though, it's a question of finding the money, isn't it? And I mean, they don't get anything like the benefits of sponsorship that the touring cars can attract, and yet if you want to go racing with a new car, you're talking about $60,000 or more.
Yeah. Well, Gary Jones's touring car plans did fall through, and this is a Van Diemen RF86 that he's out in at the moment, but I gather that he's buying a new Swift with which to compete in the rest of the season.
One of the interesting additions to the field this year, another chassis by the name of Swift. Van Diemen's been the popular vehicle in Australia for the last 12 months or so. And the new chassis should be quite interesting when it gets into the hands of a few of the top guns. These top three guys have now really started to draw away pretty well. I think it's about a 2-second gap, third to fourth at the moment. We'll just see what is transpiring back there. At last count, it was Troy Dunstan defending in car 95. I think he's still there from car number 13, and that's Russell Ingall from South Australia. These two are having a pretty good scrap at the moment for fourth and fifth. It's very important for these drivers to stick at it, not to be discouraged at the fact that they're not in the top 3 or 4, because points are rewarded down to 10th place. And have a look at Russell Ingall from South Australia on the outside there. That's a dangerous spot to be, but it might have worked out okay for him if he can just tuck down low. Couldn't quite make it. There's 20 points awarded for a first place in the Motorcraft Series. That's the national series for Formula Ford racing. Oh, gee. 95, Troy Dunstan wandering very wide that time, and now he has to really drive defensively and cover the line as they go into the left-hander. So it's 20, 15, 12, 10, and so on down the line to 10th position for 1 point, whereas the Coke Series, which is run at Amaroo Park, are 9, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1 for the top 6 positions. So it's a very important race this weekend for everybody to get the feel of the game again. And the Formula Ford Series over the years has provided some tremendous champions that have gone on to many strengths in Australian motorsport. This is Mark Larkham, one of the newfound stars of Formula Ford. He went very strongly last year, as you may recall, Gary. We spotted the distinctive coffee Ford colours in the middle of the field there a couple of times, and he chipped away. Plenty of determination and skill, and he's worked his way to the front of the field, and he's got some good engineering people behind him. He's proving that he's got his head screwed on right at the moment.
Yeah, well, those performances of last season, coupled with the fact that he was going to field this new Van Diemen in '89, has made him one of the early favourites for both the National Motorcraft Series and the local Coca-Cola Bottler Series.
Paul Stokell that time, I think, just lightly rubbing the left rear on the wall as he came out of stop corner. A bit of a trap for young players. He came from Formula V, so he knows what hard and fast racing is all about. So getting into the Formula Ford with its 1600cc single cam engine will be something of a birthday for him at the moment. A bit more power and a bit better handling characteristics.
Remarkable drive by him this, though, considering it's only his second race outside of Tasmania, and to mix it with some of the top boys like this.
Well, he's got Gary on the defence, hasn't he? He's going from edge to edge and making sure that there aren't too many gaps. That's the gap. First to second, it's Gary Jones on the right-hand side of screen in second place, in front of Paul Stokel in the Elwyn. And as we detailed before, a fairly large gap back to fourth place Troy Dunstan in 95. Although those guys have been scrapping a little bit, and I think, if anything, Russell Ingall may have got the better in that dice at the moment. So it's 13 Russell Ingall in fourth from Troy Dunstan fifth, and then another bunch of cars starting to argue over sixth and beyond.
Yes, Ingall's not only got by Dunstan, he's starting to sprint away from that second group now, and there's enough laps left, I think, for him to close up on the leaders.
It seems apparent just watching Jones's car come across the top of the hill that time that he's got a fair bit of understeer in that car. You can see the front wheels of the car pointing into the corner, but the car didn't want to head in that direction, just kept pushing wide. So maybe the chassis setup's not quite to his liking. Again, the weather yesterday hasn't helped some of the guys with their setup, and Formula Ford cars are very sensitive to track conditions. And because it's the first meeting of the year, there's not very much rubber on the circuit at the moment, and the place has been awash, rubbed any grip off. He may not have had a chance to just dial the car up nicely. This is that battle that I was talking about. This is fifth and beyond, and Troy Dunstan is the guy at the head of the pack in 95. So he swapped positions with Ingall. And we're on lap 10 of 15, 2/3 race distance, opening round of the Coke Series and the Formula Ford Driver to Europe Series, brought to you by Motorcraft.
It's Dunstan ahead of his teammate there, Paul Morris, the man that's following him up, who in fact has done a little bit of powerboating in the past.
Well, he could have done plenty of that yesterday. Yeah.
Car number 91 in behind them is Ian Allen.
Yellow car is a Lola, the only one of the make represented in this field.
Two cars ahead of him, both the very latest RF89 Van Diemen's.
They're a beautiful bit of work. It's a chassis that you'd know well in your part of the world, Richard. They're imported from the UK, and they are an absolute miniature race car in every sense, and beautiful chrome moly construction and all the wishbones and gorgeous welding. If you're into engineering, then these cars are certainly nice, and indeed the Swift is a lovely piece of engineering as well.
Yeah, the Van Diemen's been pretty much considered the car to have for Formula Ford in the past, but now there are one or two other makes, as you say, coming up. The Swift, Reynard are a company that seem to be able to produce a car that's competitive with almost anything. And there's also another car which is due to be coming to Australia later on this year, which is the Mondial.
These cars, as I said before, powered by Ford engines, Formula Ford, 1600cc, 4-cylinder. They've got a single camshaft. It's a pushrod engine, 2 valves per cylinder.
The beauty of the formula, of course, is that all the cars are so very equal.
Yeah, they're on the same tyres, for example, control tyre throughout the formula, so nobody has the advantage of tapping into the latest and greatest in tyre compounds and construction, so that's one evening factor. Mark Larkham keeping things uneven at the moment by leading away car number 5. So fairly rigid controls in this class, and I think I don't think I'd be sticking my neck out saying that this is probably the world's most popular motor racing class. It exists throughout Europe, throughout South America, obviously Australia, New Zealand. Formula Ford is virtually everywhere you go, and each year they have a World Cup in the UK, which some of our guys went to last year, like David Roberts, Andrew Gubb, Martin Carpenter, and don't they play hard in that one?
Yeah, they call it the Formula Ford Festival, but a demolition derby might be a better description of it.
Mark Larkham increasing the gap just slightly now, and looking good for $600 in prize money for a first place and 20 points in the Motorcraft Series, 9 in the Coke Series.
Paul Stokel up to second position, and Gary Jones in third place is under a heap of pressure for that spot now from Russell Ingall.
Now, there was a record entry of 45 of these cars for this event. Car number 45 in the pits. Peter Clark, Galloway, one of the older cars. And it really tells you something about the stability in the class, which is probably I think the real key to Formula Ford racing. It's always been based on a rigid set of rules. We don't get away from it. We know that it works. And it's a category where if you have good engineers and a good understanding of what the car's all about, and if obviously you've got plenty of talent, then it will certainly shine out. The last lap board now being shown. 1.93 kilometres, I think, to run for Mark Larkham. And look at this scrap for second.
Third.
Sorry, third, yeah. Gary Jones having dropped back. My apologies. This is Ingle from South Australia, and Gary Jones out wide. Gee, once you get out into that territory where there's a lot of dust and rubber build up on the outside of the circuit, you've got to skate for your life. So he's dropped back to fourth now, so he's definitely uncomfortable with the way that car's working. Mark Larkham's coming out of Honda corner, the left-hander, and heading down to stop corner now with two right-handers to run before the sprint to the checkered flag, and he'll be very, very pleased with himself. He's opened his account very well.
Last lap board is out as they come around this time. No, checkered flag rather for the victor. And these two battling it out all the way to the finish line.
Paul Stokel in second from Russell Ingle in third. Gary Jones dropping back into fourth. Well, I must admit I'm a fan of this class of racing, Richard. They are great little cars, and as I said earlier on, we get some fantastic guys come out of this class, real professionals that go on to bigger and better things in open wheel racing, and certainly it prepares them well for touring cars as well.
Yeah, well, almost all of the current Grand Prix drivers, they all started in karts and then they move straight into Formula Ford. It's always the next step up on the ladder.
Okay, let's confirm those placings on the Caltech scoreboard. Mark Larkham, the winner, from Paul Stokel. Russell Ingle in third place from Gary Jones, fourth. And car number 95 hung on for fifth, and that was Troy Dunstan. We're back in just a moment.
C-O-R-O-double-L-A. It's just the greatest feeling riding on the road today. Let me loose, don't cramp my style, let me take every...
is missing from this year's touring car trial, as is Jane's other circuit, the Adelaide International Raceway. AIR does not receive quit campaign money. Jane withdrew his circuit because morally he believed he had to stick with one set of rules.
Motor racing at the top is very expensive. As a consequence, it's very commercial, and so far as CAMS is concerned, we're pleased to have any commercial organisation support the sport without fear or favour. We have no objection to the advertising of any product which is legally able to be sold in this country being sold through motorsport.
You just can't, when you're 10 years up the road with your thoughts, you just can't pull the plug and say goodbye, mister. You just hope that in the bureaucracy, common sense prevails. There's got to be a chapter in the back of the book somewhere that says common sense. The problem is sometimes people just don't read it.
Tobacco team and event sponsorships are likely to embroil another Victorian motorsport venue. Sandown has a round of this year's Australian Touring Car Championship, but already there are moves to force the circuit to take down display advertising. Malala replaces Adelaide as the South Australian round venue for '89, while Sandown and Winton have been endorsed as the Victorian venues. Formula One has thrived on tobacco money for years. There are no ifs and buts about it. Signage and team logos are removed for the Formula One events in Germany and England, but in just about every other country it's open slather as millions of dollars are involved. In Adelaide, for instance, you could be excused for thinking it was the Marlborough and not the Foster's Grand Prix. Tobacco sponsorship of sport is one of the hottest issues to confront the federal and state governments, with the smokescreen around motor racing unlikely to blow away just yet.
Imagine a beautiful teenage girl lost in a dice game by her own father and given to England's most dissolute lord. This is A Hazard of Hearts, from the world's most famous romantic novelist, Barbara Cartland, starring Edward Fox, Diana Rigg, Christopher Plummer and Stuart Granger. A Hazard of Hearts. She was kidnapped by an aging lord, rescued by a dashing highwayman, duelled over by powerful and ruthless men. A Hazard of Hearts, for the first time on television, 8:30 Monday night.
Buy a laser from City Ford now and you're in for the surprise of your life. Because when you pay for a 5-speed GL laser, we'll give you a luxury gear model instead. That's over $1,600 worth of features absolutely free. But hurry, The offer only applies to current stocks. So come and talk to us now at Crown Street City, Camperdown or Mascot.
Yes, yes, yes. City Boys is yes more often.
It's your big day today.
Well, you can't put the bite on your dad.
Don't forget the roses and the video man. Just relax.
Oh, not once you're married, Mike. Here's in the flat before 10. The more you save, the more interest you earn. No, there's no bank charges whatsoever.
Here goes.
Bruce Stewart in an EH Oldham, then Mike Dyer, also in an EH. A Cooper S driven by Bruce Allen, occupies 5th spot on the grid. William Marshall was a little slow off the mark in the Mustang, then Lindsay Dyer in a Cooper S. Jack Lacey is next on the grid, and here they go.
They're off now. Donoher getting very, very sideways there. As they head up the hill for the first time, Brad Tilley sitting on pole in the Mustang. See if he can lead it over the top and drop down into Dunlop Loop for the first time. Battle-scarred EH is in there. They make their way through Dunlop Loop and now work the back straight. Pretty safe first corner, actually. Guys all through there and now working the back part of the course.
Steve Trevica in the Valiant. What a jam.
Laurie Donoher in a Revolta, but I wouldn't have called it that.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, really.
It is. We had a change for the lead with Laurie Donoher in the Revolta. Oh, that wasn't nice. That was Brad at the tiller of 77. 88 caught a little wide there.
It's Greg Topfer in the EH. Well, the Mustang trying to get all that horsepower out of the road through fairly old-fashioned rubber, if you like. Blue flag being waved frantically to tell the competitors that some passing going on. Is there ever?
Pretty cut and thrust at the head of the pack. This 5-lap sprint presented by Valvoline. Golden Oldies. Nice to hear that throb of the V8s heading up the hill here at Amaroo Park.
Got him.
Yes. Donoher still leads it, but he's under a little bit of pressure himself at the moment. That's William Marshall making a run at him as they come down to Toledo corner.
You reckon they'll have enough rubber to make the checkered flag?
Well, it's only a 5-lapper, they should have. Donoher still clear of Marshall. And a fantastic scrap going here for third.
Bruce Stewart, car 84, being out-braked that time.
Watch him dive back on the inside here. Oh, little tap there. Pretty close here for third, fourth and beyond. Bruce, of course, has been around for a fair while in motorsport. Loses out to the Stang on the way up the hill, but closes up at Dunlop Loop when the Stang runs out of everything, including brakes.
These are touring cars of yesteryear and still very popular with the crowds here at Amaroo Park and very popular amongst the drivers as well. Jason Tilley.
He was in a spot about a lap or so back.
He's got a yabbing.
Yeah, got a clip there in the tail and has wound up down near the lake, out of harm's way. Meanwhile, back at the head of the pack, race leader Laurie Donoher has run into a spot of bad luck. I think he missed a gear. Maybe make that 2. He's dropped back to second place. So
Marshall has the lead now.
Donoher is able to pick the pace up a little bit, close up behind Marshall.
Bruce Stewart just tapped the fence as he came out underneath the press room and up onto the pit straight.
Tilley back in third, and then Jack Lacey.
A lot of people run into the fence coming out of the press room.
Down through Dunlop Loop. And Donoher had this one sewn up. I think he skipped a gear or two, that time through Toledo turn. Dropped back, probably a couple of 100 metres, comes storming back now at Marshall.
Life wasn't made any more pleasant out there when one of the cars towards the rear of the field spent a lap depositing oil all over the road. So at the moment they're working pretty hard from lock to keep these things on the black stuff.
So the lead has really closed up, and I'll tell you what, it's just as hot right behind the leaders too. There's another group including Lacey, what is called a Falcon. There it is going through.
They're on their last lap.
Stewart right behind him in 84 as they take the last lap board and work their way once again up towards Nissan Skyline. Well, Bruce really does lose out to the V8s on the way up the hill.
Or when they grab the Mustang by the ears and get it straight and can put the boot in, it really works properly. But anything to do with going sideways or stopping, it's all hands on deck.
Final lap now. William Marshall leads them down the hill for the final time. Laurie Donoher in second place. Ooh.
Saw that in a Bond movie once.
The sprint down to the lake corner now. And it's William Marshall just holding out Laurie Donoher. Donoher hasn't done a bad job in the Revolta. Last corner comes up. Checkered flag in the ready. And it's Willie Marshall across the line to beat Donoher in the run to the flag. And Brad Tilley, who sat on pole for the event, is in fact going to pick up third spot. Great to see those cars of yesteryear competing in the Valvoline Golden Oldie Sprint here this afternoon at Amaroo Park Raceway. Here's our race winner, William Marshall in the Mustang. Laurie Donoher picks up second and Brad Tilley third. And a tremendous crowd here at Amaroo Park Raceway for the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Let's have a look at the Caltex race score. William Marshall is race winner. Laurie Donoher places second. Brad Tilley third. Jack the Jet Lacey is fourth. And Bruce Stewart rounds off the 5.
For heaven's sake, grow old gracefully.
For the Richards is up with them in the Nissan as they head down to the right-hander at the lake.
Stewards might want to look at the instant replay of the start. I think might be just a photo finish there, whether or not John Bowe might have jumped the start.
There's Brock going through. He's back to third. Richards is closing on him. Tony Longhurst is there, and Longhurst now makes the run up on the inside of Jimmy Richards. Gains one more spot. Up to tailgate Peter Brock at the top of Skyline. So the order is John Bowe, Dick Johnson. Back behind them, of course, Peter Brock, Tony Longhurst, then Jim Richards in the Nissan car number 2. And behind them, Glenn Seaton, and then Colin Bond in the Caltex CXT. One already out, car number 38, Tony Mulverhill. That's bad luck in the pits already. His race is well and truly gone. They've been having problems with the car trying to make the start, came out, but they're now back into the pit area again. Race continues as we pick them up coming along the short chute before a big crowd here at Amaroo Park today, and across the line Bowe leads it, teammate Dick Johnson in second, opening a bit of a gap over Brock. Next is Longhurst, followed by Richard Seaton is the next one, then Colin Bond in the Caltex Cosworth.
Well, Dick Johnson's made no secret about how the Shell team are going to run the championship this year. He said exactly like 1988, he and Bowe, it's their intention to get out in front and grind everybody else into the dirt. That's the way it's happening right now, except that it's Bowe in front, not Dick.
Well, Brock still sits back there in third spot. As you said earlier, Gary, you thought there may have been a move from Bowe before the start. Let's have a look at this in our replay for you. They're all at the start. Yes, well,
it's
it was
pretty
marginal.
close.
It was marginal. But what a split, though, when he went between them to take the lead away. Fantastic start there from John Bowe. In the meantime, we're back looking at Peter Brock in 05, the Mobile Sierra, and Tony Longhurst in the Benson and Hedges car right behind him.
Several good judges are giving John Bowe the benefit of good reflexes.
Now Longhurst starts up the inside here of Peter Brock as they come across the top of the hill. Yes, and the Longhurst gains one more spot.
It's been quite a drive, hasn't it, by Longhurst, when you think about it, the first 2.5 laps of this race.
Sure has, and just notice how close that Jim Richards is staying to these two Sierras.
And Richards this morning was supremely confident that he'll be able to run like this all day without too much trouble. He's given Brock the go-by.
Well, the man who employed him last year. So Jim in car number 2, the Nissan Skyline GTSR Turbo, sits in behind Tony Longhurst. Brock dropping back through the field. And gaining on him is Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson entry, followed by Colin Bond. That's the order as they go up Bitchapave Hill yet again in this opening round. 1 hour race. the Australian Touring Car Championship. What a full book Jim Richards has for season 89 with touring car commitments, and also Oscar Racing in a Ford, and also his NASCAR book also full, so he's a busy boy. Jimmy Richards, 41 years of age, from Melbourne. Nissan driver for this year. First in the 85 and 87 Touring Car Championship at Bathurst. Co-winner in 78, 79 and 80. Debut drive for Nissan today, and fourth Amaroo last year in the touring car round. There's Dickie Johnson, 17, closing on his teammate John Bow. They list themselves as equal number ones in the Shell Sierra team.
The lead car driven by John Bow, Mike, in fact, is Dick Johnson's Bathurst car from last October. The car that he drove with such success in 88. And, of course, the 17 car that he's behind the wheel of now is brand new.
The one that he refers to as the Eggenberger eater.
Well, the two Shell Sierras head down to Lake Corner, the right-hander. Dick closing on teammate John. Third place still being held by Tony Longhurst. Jim Richards runs in fourth place. Peter Brock in 05 is 5. Then Colin Bond. Next is George Fury, followed by Glenn Seaton. And then a toss-up, but I would think it's probably Kenny Matthews in the second of the Caltech Sierras. So Johnson, all the time closes on his teammate. You'll recall last year in the Touring Car Championship, the fun-filled race that we had with Dick getting to the front, and then all of a sudden problems, and then John Bow went through to take over the lead. And Dick came back through the field. Everyone expected John to stop, let him pass, but he didn't.
Well, they've built themselves some insurance here, the two boys from the Shell team. Opened up a gap. They're running a comfortable first and second. They're not racing each other, much as the impression may be at the moment. They'll be content to set the pace in front, as long as they can stay well clear of the opposition. And I don't think that Johnson would in fact make any overt move to take the lead away from Bow at this stage.
Johnson running Bow awfully close there, looking as if this might possibly be the lap that he looks for a way past his teammate.
The Lake Corner yet again. John Bow from Tasmania.
Back in the pack, veteran Murray Carter, who came off 18th position on the grid, has struck trouble early in his new Sierra RS 500. It is a little RS and is in the pits, in fact.
Everything running smoothly for the Shell team as they exit Dunlop Loop, come down the back straight. Down through Mazda Corner on the way to the left-hander at Honda. Getting, and we'll pick this up for you shortly, the battle for second place. This Jim Richards is all over Tony Longhurst like a wet blanket. And in fact, making a very determined bid. The two of them are racing side by side. We'll pick that up for you. They've been at that for a couple of laps. So Bow leads along the short straight. Johnson runs in second place. And in fact, it's Jim Richards who now moves through into third place behind this group. So Richards in the Nissan doing one heck of a job. Longhurst now drops back to fourth. Fifth place is then held by Brock, followed by George Fury.
And Andrew Madecki is in sixth place, having come off 26th position on the grid.
It's a sensational performance from Andrew Madecki in the Kenwood entry. Here they are coming down the straight, down the short straight. We'll pick them up for you on the Caltex race score. John Bow is your race leader from Dick Johnson. Jimmy Richards runs in third. Tony Longhurst is fourth. And Peter Brock runs in fifth.
are aging lovers.
Your happiness is my life's work.
Their affair shocked the children.
Did you know they had sex the second time they met?
A journey into love.
He's got this idea in his head if he lets...
Oh, he's lost it! Oh, he's out of the race!
Oh, if only he'd stuck with Dunlop.
Out of there, looking out of shape. Colin Bond right behind him. I think he's gone up and just touched the wall. We look on ICO Dulux Auto Colour race cam, and certainly Seaton lost a lot of ground that time. And there's Jim Richards, the real mover in the pack. But Cito, for a little bit of bad luck there, has picked up an award today, Wilco.
Well, they might take it back off him now. It was for Dulux Auto Colour Award for the best presented car. It wouldn't fit the category any longer, would it?
No. He's had a nice scrape down that wall. It's a beautifully engineered and presented car. But the shaker in the pack at the moment is certainly Jim Richards, car number 2. It's the Rita Awadallah Holden Commodore, Blue Haven's Pools entry.
Former sports sedan competitor here at Amaroo Park, having a go at the big time. Fielding a 2-car team, Gary Wilmington driving the other entry. As we come back on Jim Richards, closing rapidly on the 2 Shell teams, the 2 Shell cars rather, at the head of affairs here this afternoon.
There they are, and Richards certainly closing that gap at the moment. They've done about 800 kilometres of testing with their old vehicles. That's last year's cars with the Nissan team, and Peter Brock incidentally in trouble. He's been dropping back through the field. And Fred Gibson is very, very happy that the cars are now ultra reliable. This is a brand new car, didn't turn a wheel before last Thursday here at Amaroo Park. It's 70 kilos lighter than the Nissans we saw last year, so it's built right down to its minimum weight for the class, which is 1,100 kilograms. There's Brock. Exit 1 turbo.
So Brocky heads into the pits after dropping back through the field. There he is coming down pit lane.
Leaving Brad Jones, who's been coming up from the back of the field after some problems yesterday, and he would be inside the top 10 at the moment, I think.
Well, Brock goes to the pits. Crew at leisure. Not much they can do if he has blown a turbo. In the meantime, we've been following a couple of drivers coming through the field. Brad Jones is one, and Andrew Medecky in the Kenwood Sierra is another, who started, as we mentioned earlier, out of position number 26, and has really been hounding them.
I really think this performance by the Nissan team is noteworthy, Mike. It's been a tremendous performance. George Fury can't believe the transformation in the car compared to the car that he drove last year. And I've never seen Fred or his team more determined than they are to succeed this year. And they've quietly worked away at the job. There we look at the heartbeat of the 05 Mobile Ford. And it's not beating too well at the moment.
No.
Alan Gow, team manager, in discussion with Brock. And there's Andrew Medecky with newfound backing in 1989, Kenwood Hi-Fi and Yokohama Rubber. A launch in Sydney's Siebel Townhouse a couple of weeks ago, and has now moved his entire facility to Queensland. He's got 9 full-time staff working on the car, and they've done a lot of work. Ross Stone, the chief engineer there, and he knows precisely what he's on about. And after the end of the Australian touring car season last year, he took his car across to New Zealand, went well in Wellington, but came up with a win at Pukekohe near Auckland. And so Medecky riding high at the moment, having come from the back of the field. He's in now, 8th position. There's Peter Brock out of the Sierra, the Rouse car, which ran in Caliber colours last year and won the Silverstone TT race. George Smith, one of the chief engineers of the team, just to his left.
That's not the best of starts for Pete.
Well, they've done a good job considering they put the car on the front row of the grid.
Yep.
And, you know, the car's only arrived in the country 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they've worked furiously. They've tried to set up new premises in Melbourne, and it's a horrible job trying to set up new transporters and cars and people and all sorts of ingredients. So they've flown the flag pretty high nonetheless.
Andrew Medecky on screen. John Bow continues to lead this race from Dick Johnson. And Jim Richards driving now for Nissan, but Richards closing the gap only 1.5 seconds. John Bow lapping in 54.2 seconds here at Amaroo Park at the moment.
The thing that they were most confident about in the Nissan team was the consistency of the car, Gary, over a period of 1 hour. They came out here a couple of weeks ago, did some tyre testing. They just weren't interested in what the best lap time was. They were interested in the most consistent, average, fast lap times. And Jim Richards is the guy who can best deliver that performance at the moment. He's only 0.8 behind race leader. And
he's sitting in behind the 2 Dick Johnson cars at this stage.
Fred's installed a new computer-controlled engine dyno in their headquarters at Dandenong. They've got more horsepower in the mid-range, considerably more horsepower in the mid-range, and a little bit more right at the top of the rev band. So with a little less weight, a little more power, two very good steerers in Fury and Richards, they're looking pretty good this year.
As we said before, we have timed races for the Touring Car Championship for season 89, 1 hour races, and we're just on 17 minutes now into round number 1 with John Bow from Tasmania and 18 leading from Dick Johnson, and this man, Jimmy Richards.
And Fury, his teammate, has just got by Tony Longhurst, and he's now 4th behind Jim Richards. So 2 Shell Sierras, 2 Nissan Skylines, and then another bunch of Sierras.
Coming up on Kenny Matthews in the second of the Caltex Sierras at this stage, our 2 leaders trying to find a path through on the inside.
Yes, the Ken Matthews car painted a rather lurid.
Looks smart though, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, it's. I think they're going to opt for that colour with the Colin Bond car too.
New Caltex livery. The order at the moment: Bow, Johnson, Richards, then Fury, Longhurst, Bond, Madecki, Seaton, Brad Jones and Mark Gibbs, and Jim Richards is going to change that order very, very soon, I reckon.
Well, we'll see how much Dick has got left in the Sierra to wring out of it, because Jim is just getting closer all the time. In fact, last time down the hill, Dick was a little all over the place. Richards was able to close up.
Remember that Richards finished 4th in this race last year, the 70-lapper, and gave away only something in the order of 25 seconds to Dick and John. John was the winner on that occasion in the BMW. So he's got a little bit more horsepower this year with the Nissan 6-cylinder turbo, twin-cam engine, 24 valves.
Doesn't he drive this circuit well, though, Richards?
Yeah.
And a lot of work here with the BMW team.
They've also got Yokohama rubber for 1989 to the Nissan team, having run Dunlops last year. The 2 Johnson cars on Dunlop rubber. Seems to be the most popular tyre manufacturer in the race at this stage. Brock running Bridgestone, Colin Bond running Toyo.
Bow goes through, then Dick, then Jimmy Richards. Hope you're enjoying round number 1 of the National Touring Car Championship on the Australian Television Network.
Chris Lambden in the Borough Pairs Commodore has been to the pits and rejoined the race some laps down. 8 rounds in the series this year. More prize money than ever, thanks to Shell, $275,000. A series for the drivers and for the makes, the brands of car.
Yes, each round of the championship worth $23,000 plus dollars, and then there's a mid-season prize money split up of 35 and another 40,000 at the end of the season.
Correct. Look at this. Johnson on the outside. Gentleman Jim shuts the door. Sorry, Dick. Different series this year. Now, Dick immediately pulls in behind Richards. That was a master stroke, that one, using a slower car.
Look at Freddie.
Oh,
Golly.
54.4
for John Bow on that lap, so the pace is a little slower than they probably expected. I reckon that with very hot conditions, they're chewing into rubber, and DJ coming back with a lash at Richo. I reckon George Fury would be having a bit of a smile and a smirk, because he's got nice clean air in front of his car at the moment. He's down probably the best part of about 5 seconds on this bunch, but he's not too far from it, and will wait to pick up some crumbs.
Coming downhill for the left-hander now at Honda Corner. And Mr. Versatile of motorsport, Jimmy Richards, the man who can win in touring cars and the Oscars and the NASCARs, drives the wheels off just about everything.
Just came back from Mexico last week, where he ran in a Championship of Nations event with Alan Grice at the Hermanos Rodriguez circuit in Mexico City.
That would be a question of nations. Let's check them out for you on the Caltex race score. John Bow is your race leader from Jimmy Richards, doing it for Nissan. Dick Johnson is 3rd, Georgie Fury 4th, and Tony Longhurst rounds out the top 5.
Test your IQ. Question: what's the difference between the Pulsar Q and the Quarian?
Hello. Keeping the pressure well and truly on Jimmy Richards.
24 minutes of racing, 60 minutes the duration of this first round, and each of the rounds this year. I've got the clocks on John Bow at the moment, the winner of this corresponding round in 1988.
Jim's got himself in the Sierra sandwich, and he wants to get out of it. Here's John in car number 18. Richards now, see if he works to the inside as they come down on the short run to the right-hander at the late corner. Jim also trying to protect his tail. There's not much he can do, get a clean shot at Bow this time.
This is great racing, isn't it? Three absolute, you know, gentlemen, real talent out here. Three guys running nose to tail. They don't come much tougher than John Bow at the wheel. He's punching really hard at the moment. And Dick Johnson now sneaks up on the inside and uses just a little bit better run onto the straight to come back and make it a shell 1-2 at the moment. And that losing momentum behind John Bow has cost Jim Richards, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here as they start to bake rubber up.
Well, in fact, if you recall 2 laps ago, Richards was sitting right on the tail of Bow, and he's dropped back off the pace. Whether or not he's got a problem, we'll have to wait and see, but...
So excited, didn't stop my stopwatch that time.
So, John Bow, Dick Johnson and Jim Richards.
Colin Bond, meanwhile, in the pits in the Caltech CXT racing Ford Sierra. I believe that, in fact, he's only just gone back out of the pits, having made a stop. Dulux Auto Colour race cam. And Bondi's back out and running. So whatever his problem was temporary. That's a real shame because he got off to a good start. So Seaton and Bagnall and Bond have had a few worries with their Sierras today. Good chance to look at the style of Colin Bond, former Australian Rally champion, winner at Bathurst, Australian Touring Car champion in 75. Had the pleasure of going with Bondi around a rally sprint course in Canberra last year. When you see how well this fella works on the dirt, you can appreciate why he's been such a champion over such a long period of time. His car control is unbelievably good.
He's coming up to put a lap on one of the Blue Haven Pools car.
And we might mention this is a new lightweight race cam unit in this car this year. Everything's been updated for 89, including the camera. He's fighting a lot of horsepower there. It's one of the tricks they tell me with these cars. You really have to learn to drive very carefully, particularly as you're putting power on over slow corners. They'll bake up their rear tyres very quickly, and as soon as they overheat, instant loss of grip and then instant drama. Well, they settled back into high 53s and 54s in this race last year, and they've done exactly the same today, and conditions are definitely hotter. And look at Richards round the outside. Now, remember, he did this in a BMW to Dick Johnson.
And did it again.
2 years ago. He's done it again. Unbelievable.
Oh, Freddie thinks,
can't believe he's lucky.
This hasn't happened for years.
There's Trevor in the background. They're thrilled. They're seeing the fruits of their hard-earned labour.
So whether Jim can pull it back up onto the tail of John Bow.
How does he do that round there? I still can't figure out how he gets away with it. You can't, it's not supposed to be in the book.
You're a teammate of his, didn't he tell you that?
I think he taught me everything but that.
Once again down into Dunlop Loop. John Bow still the race leader. Jimmy Richards comes back up into second. Dick Johnson drops back 1 to third. And again, we'll have to wait and see whether or not he can haul in John Bow. At this moment, there's a bit of trouble here going the outside route on the Toyota. Richards was going to do that himself, but the Toyota moved ground, so Jim says, I'll have a little shot down on the inside here, which he does, but very comfortably. Heads down to the late corner.
That was Russell Becker, who's having his first run in the Toyota Corolla, a Formula 4 driver, an ex-kart champion, who's the first of the Toyota Star Search drivers, and I think Dick Johnson saluted him a couple of times as he went past. Toyota, as you mentioned earlier, Mike, launching a program this year to bring new talent into Australian motorsport. Top marks to them.
To Dunlop Loop, John Bow, Jimmy Richards back on the move again.
So the order now: Bow, Richards, Johnson, Fury, Tony Longhurst in 5th, Andrew Medecki 6th, Glenn Seaton 7th, then Brad Jones. Great performance to come through from the back of the field. Alan Moffat and Neville Crichton.
Oh, how close do you like it as Bow finds Jimmy Richards ready for another challenge for the lead in round 1 of the touring car titles from Amaroo Park. He gets away. Here comes Jim down the outside. On the brakes, getting ready to see if he can outsquirt him down the inside. Got plenty of powers to board that Sierra number 18. Coming back across the start-finishing line, John Bow defending the race lead in round number 1 from Jimmy Richards in the Nissan GTSR Turbo.
From John Bow, race leader, to George Fury in 4th, it's only 7.5 seconds as well. Gerald Kay, Jag Parts Commodore, just moving over politely. Sierra, Nissan, and then 6 more Sierras. K, Sierra.
Here he comes again. Here's the big move. Can he pull it this time on John Bow? Bow moves him maybe just a touch off the racetrack.
JB's a wake up.
He fell for that a couple of laps ago.
The only way that Bow's retained this lead is by driving defensively.
Well, John's also I've been watching him. He's very quick out of that left-hander. He tends to use a little bit more of the road there than Dick. And Richards at the moment just niggling at him. I think that he can afford to do that for a while, the way things are shaping up. There's certainly no need at this stage of the race to try and pull a desperate. If it comes good, then great, but if it doesn't, just lurk around for a while. And it depends on whose tyres are in what shape. Now another 10 or 15 minutes from now. They're up onto the back of Mark Gibbs, who's driving the Bob Forbes Holden Commodore, driven at Bathurst last year by Kevin Bartlett and John Harvey. Support from Suttons, and Gibbsy doing the right thing. We saw him run well in that production car race. John Bow squeezes by. That's the Andrew Bagnall car stricken in the background there. Gulliver's Travels entry.
Johnny Bow, of course, interesting young man from Tasmania, 34 years of age, from Devonport. Winner of the 84 and 85 Gold Stars Series, second last year in the...
So, if anything, they're a tad slower than they were last year. There's a couple of variable factors, as I mentioned earlier. There's no rubber on the circuit after getting a real deluge yesterday, plus it's the first meeting of the year here, and that should always be taken into account. The track temperature's pretty high, but also the fuels have changed this year, or the fuel has changed this year. And everybody running the same fuel in 1989, one specification for all, and a number of the teams have had to reprogram for that, and that's also one of the slight variables compared to last year. I think it was a sensible move on the part of CAMS and the series sponsors Shell to do that, and it took the grumbles and groans away regarding fuel. Coming up onto the back of Neville Crichton, the second Benson and Hedges Ford Sierra. Neville making a welcome return to full-time touring car racing. In 1989, he was with Tony Longhurst and the JPS team a couple of years back in the BMW 635, and he's dabbled with his toes in the water occasionally. He's been very busy with his business, Atico, where they handle Suzukis, and they've been bringing Volkswagen back into Australia and up to the fore, and Audi. So Neville's been off playing businessman games.
Here we go again, down the outside. Now feint a pass and make sure you're in tight on the inside on the exit.
Well, some traffic coming into play now.
Jim had just loved this.
Well, John's in the worst spot. He's sort of driving by the rear mirror as well as looking out the front. He's sort of try and cover every move from Jim. And Jim's worry, I guess, when he's in the hole in the air punched by John Bow's car is not to see the gauges go off the clock in car number 2.
They're coming up to put a lap on Neville Crichton in the B&H Sierra, the second of the yellow Sierras.
And Neville's done the right thing, given everybody plenty of space to do business. Always gentle at the wheel. There's no argument with the steering wheel for Jim Richards. Huge crowd enjoying plenty of sunshine today, which is a bonus for Sydney after the last few weeks.
I tell you what, they're also enjoying a race.
Yeah, it's a ripper. As Richards again out wide, John Bow just nips up that front left, which gets a little bit light as he begins to turn the car in. And Dick Johnson, if anything, just edging a bit closer again as a result of all that. And George Fury, as I predicted a bit earlier, enjoying something of a tow along out of all this. He is now only 4.7 seconds. The last time I measured it was 7.5.
And 9 cars on the lead lap.
Well, while Bow drives defensively and keeps Richards behind him, Johnson watches all, and of course Fury, as you say, is catching up. It won't be long before Johnson will have his mirrors full of another Nissan.
Won't that be a scrap?
Plenty of traffic to contend with on Amaru Park. There's Chris Lambden and the Bow Repairs Commodore, having a lap put on him by both John Bow and Jimmy Richards.
Pretty soon you'll start seeing glimpses of George in the background. who's just gone past Mark Gibbs. They're coming up now to Ken Matthews in the second Caltech CXT Racing Ford Sierra.
So it's got some grunt in it, that Nissan. He just gave him about 3 car lengths and pulled him in before the corner.
He's also very strong under brakes. Great feel for the motor car has Jim Richards, 1985 and 87 Australian Touring Car Champion, the winner of the AMSCAR series here, Richards, so he knows his stuff around Amaroo Park. And for so many years, we've become used to watching Jim rattling around in BMW products very successfully. It came as something of a surprise to many that he joined Nissan this year. He evaluated the car, had a deep and meaningful with Fred and the team, and they reckoned that they were on a good thing for 89.
It obviously handles superbly. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that round here, it appears to handle better than the Sierra. But then again, that just might be Gentleman Jim's driving style.
The way the car appeared to the layman last year, it seemed to buck and jump about. It looked to leap about on the road, but it's not apparent, certainly on this circuit, is it?
Well, that wasn't something that was apparent with the car that Alan Grice and Win Percy ran in Europe. Now, that car also ran on Yokohama tyres, I should add, which this car is now this year. And that may, of course, have a little to do with it. But Freddie Gibson, I know, has taken a little interest in what happened with the European car, and I would guess some of its better points perhaps have been transferred to the Australian car.
I know one fella who'll be very twitchy at the moment watching from the wrong side of the barrier, and that's Mark Scaife, who's the 3rd member of the Nissan team in 89. And I reckon he'd be itching to get out amongst it. He put in a very good showing last year in the final round of the Shell Series at Oran Park. Had a good scrap with Jim Richards. So Mark can look forward to getting into a pretty competitive car later in the year. I think we'll see him at some of the AMSCAR races, and we'll certainly see him in the longer distance stuff later in the year.
Come down to Honda Corner yet again. So the saga continues. John Bauer in car number 18. Let's check out the Caltex race score. Bauer still leads from Jimmy Richards. Dick Johnson is back there in 3rd. Close.
Remember when the Logie Awards was the most entertaining night on Australian television? There was only ever one reason for that. Now Bert Newton returns to make the 1989 Logie Awards a television event. Add to this a spectacular lineup of international stars and your favourite Aussie personalities, and you've got the best night of TV in years. Bert Newton brings the fun back to TV's Night of Nights with the 31st Annual TV Week Logie Awards, presented by Cadbury March 17 on 7.
Nothing could have been finer when I'm driving in the mid-diner.
Nothing could be finer than my slick ship diner.
Nothing can go sour. I've got direct injection power. Nothing has to be bought. I've got wide cab space and comfort. Nothing could be finer because I'm driving in my diner. Oh, what a feeling. Diner, Toyota.
Gilbert and Sullivan's The Gondoliers. The Australian Opera presents this truly unique production at the Sydney Opera House. Hilarious, filled with colourful characters, wonderful singing and dancing. Terrific family entertainment. The
Gondolier scrap continues between John Bauer, Jimmy Richards, and a closing Dick Johnson in car number 17. 40 minutes have gone of the 1-hour race, 20 still remain, obviously, and Jimmy Richards falling back just into the clutches of Dick Johnson in the last lap of this event. Dick very keen to get past.
He sort of lost momentum a couple of laps ago in the break and tried to get round the outside of John Bauer down at the stop corner, got squeezed out up onto the ripple strip and just lost contact slightly with JB, and that's allowed Dick to get a little bit closer, and he's just niggling him at the moment.
We keep mentioning Georgie Fury, though. I should tell you that gap down is now down to under 4 seconds between Johnson and Fury.
And the last time over the top of the hill, Jim sort of fishtailed a bit over there, and when he tried to go through the left-hander at Honda, he was understeering wide of the apex, and I think he's just got to get back in the groove again and take the pressure off himself with Dick so close.
Well, he's made a number of moves around the outside of John Bauer in this corner, as we've seen. As you just mentioned, the last time there, he got the good old chop, wound up on the ripple strip.
So you look at the gap that John's got now over Richards. It's 2.4 seconds. That's only out of the last couple of laps.
The gap between 3rd and 4th, though, now. Johnson's going to have his mirrors full any minute now. George Fury.
There's Fury. Now, closing. And he's been doing a little easier than Jim.
A look at the top 10 on lap 46 of the 1 hour race. Bow, Richards, Johnson, then Georgie Fury 4th, Tony Longhurst 5th, Andrew Madecki in 6th, Glenn Seaton in 7th, Brad Jones in 8th in the second Mobil car, Alan Moffat in the ANZ Ford Sierra 9th, and Mark Gibbs, the Commodore, in 10th. George Fury is running in a rebuilt and revised car that did exist last year, whereas Richo's car is new. George is 44 years of age and a rally champion of years gone by. A runner-up in the Australian Touring Car Championship on a couple of occasions. He's won the Sandown 500, but never the big one at Bathurst, and that's what he's been working towards. And he finished 3rd in this race last year when they were just unveiling this car to the world. And hasn't it come a long way in a little less than 12 months? I think everybody tends to overlook development in racing cars. I think often there's the expectation that you plonk them on the track and they go and blow everybody's door handles off because they've got a nice coat of Dulux and a cut and polish, but it takes time and effort, money, all sorts of things to get them up, and Fred and the team were late in their program last year and it didn't help their cause, and they've had to work pretty solidly for 12 months to get them mobile. And now it's working, no question.
Here goes Georgie Fury on the run down to the lake corner. He's after Dick Johnson. Lap still on his side. Now we take our ICI Dulux Auto Colour race cam with Glenn Seaton debuting today in the Peter Jackson Ford Sierra.
We'll be profiling Glenn Seaton in next weekend's telecast, round 2 of the series from Symmons Plains and his new operation in Melbourne. He said to me when I was down there last week that he was happy just to get about for a while and see what it was all like, and then after 2 or 3 rounds, go like hell was the quote.
Well, he was passed by Andrew Madecki early in the race and has just worked his way back past Andrew, so that takes him up to 6th for the PJ Sierra team, so he's doing very nicely.
Immaculately turned out car, and it picked up the award today for the best presented car. And when you look inside at the sort of engineering in the car, the welding, the way it's been painted, every little conceivable part on the car, Richard, is absolutely gorgeous. I was frankly surprised because everybody thought that when Glenn left Nissan last year that it may have been a dodgy move. Whoops! And Dick Johnson to the pits.
So Johnson's gone into the pits, and that was a quick pit stop. I hope he made it through the entrance because
they could be wearing him in the press room. I think he went in there at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure if that's the cameraman running in front of it. No, there he is, trying to get up.
Tyres are dead, are they?
Yep.
Yeah, he's in for rubber. Well, there you go. Left rear, that's the working tyre in this race. Oh, you must have blistered one, or good stop, well drilled.
Yes,
but that's cost him plenty of time.
As it was. Now,
he's given a half a lap away to his teammate John Bow, and he's in 7th position. Nissan 2 and 3, they're lurking, aren't they?
Sure are. And Bow, little touch sideways coming out of the lake corner that time. Comes up inside the little Corolla.
The point that I was going to make about Glenn Seaton was that maybe he was sort of plunging into the unknown a bit with his own team and Father Barry, but they've set up a glorious workshop in Melbourne. New facilities, milling equipment and all sorts of high-tech gear to make sure that they're on the pace. And good transport. The facilities at their fingertips are just right at the moment. I think that car will work up to full competitive speed within a couple of races.
One of the little Toyota guys bouncing off the ripple strip as Jimmy Richards tries to close that gap on John Bow. Bow, incidentally, about to put a lap, I believe, on Alan Moffat in the ANZ Sierra as they go down to the lake corner. Alan qualified in 8th spot here today. So he's had a lap put in by Bow. There's Glenn Seaton now as we take the Dulux Auto Colour race cam, working his way past Tony Longhurst. So Glenn starting to...
was it Longhurst or Crichton?
Could have been Crichton.
We'll have a look. No, it was Longhurst. So spot on.
So he's coming back through the pack. Car running strongly at the finish of today's race. So,
well, life got a bit ugly for him coming out of this corner very early in the race when he and Bondi had a little touch. He's regained his momentum. Dick Johnson, incidentally, back up to 5th place, revitalised with some rubber on that car.
Johnson, in fact, is 6th at the moment. He'll be 5th if he should get past Longhurst ahead of him.
Glenn Seaton dives into the right-hander at Dunlop Loop. "47 minutes of 60 into round 1 of the Shell National Touring Car Championship from Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. As we mentioned, round 2 takes place at Symmons Plains in Launceston in Tasmania next weekend. We'll be there, and so too will 20,000 screaming Tasmanian supporters after John Bower. In the meantime, Johnson in car number 17 gets around the outside of Longhurst, Benson and Hedges Sierra.
Now he's 5th.
5th on the road at the moment. Fresh set of tyres. And he really has the job ahead of him, but at the same time he's got he's closing very, very quickly on a group of cars, including Seaton. So we'll see whether or not Dick can to make up the ground and maybe a top 3 finish here today.
We were talking about Toyota before. Later in the year, we're going to see John Smith and an all-new Toyota team having a go in the open class with the Group A touring car version of the Toyota Supra Turbo. We saw it in production car form earlier today, and that'll add some more spice to the series. I think the entry list for this meeting totaled 38 for the touring car event. It's quite remarkable and reflecting the health of the game at the moment.
And we take the race cam again in Glenn Seaton's car, the Dulux Auto Color camera, and he's coming up on the Caltex Sierra. Waves, and then we give you the second version.
Bondi's having a chat
with Colin Bond. You've got to be very careful with Bondi because he talks to himself all the way through the race.
He says, come on, come on, come on.
Oh, and there's Johnson just straight past. So Johnson with a fresh set of tyres is just zooming back through the field.
And that move sees him up to 4th.
Yeah, I might put the clock on Dick next lap round and see just how quickly he's going. The rear of his car looks pretty stable there, but on the left-hander, it's likely to be, because that's the side of the car that works the least on this track, and the rubber's likely to be in a better state.
They come along the short straight. Seaton going through, having been passed there by Dickie Johnson in car number 17. And he also separated Colin Bond.
Well, I've got the stopwatch on Dick Johnson at the moment.
Bond drops down into Dunlop Loop. Race lead still the same. John Bower in car number 18 for the Shell team, leading the race.
Bondi's in position 11, by the way.
Second, of course, is Jimmy Richards. Colin Bond, car number 4, the Caltex car. You're having a good time out there, Cole. Plenty of noise. Can you hear us, Colin? He said he wouldn't talk. I think he's right.
Can't really hear you, Mike, if you're trying to get through.
Can you hear?
It's out here today.
Can you hear us, Cole? We won't worry for the moment. We'll talk to Colin Bond a little later. I think he's got his hands full at the moment.
Well, he's in the second chorus.
Yes. Yes, you're not quite...
A lot of noise coming back through the exhaust. I really can't hear you. I think Glenn and I are in about... actually. The rear tyres just refuse to stick. We're battling on because we presume this race is going to do about 65 laps.
All right, well, you heard it from Cole.
Well, he's fighting the thing that I think everybody's battling with at the moment, and that's a desperate lack of grip. Very hot out there at the moment, and on a notoriously hard-on tyres circuit.
Let's recap them for you. On the Caltex race score, John Bowers, the race leader. Jimmy Richards runs in second. George Fury is third. Dickie Johnson back now to 4th, and Glenn Seaton is 5th.
C-O-R-O-double
18, with about 5 minutes 50 seconds of racing still left. in the first 1 hour time race of the Championship Series for 89. They come down the back straight.
I think, if anything, John Bow's put plenty of distance into Jim Richards in the last 2 laps. And Bow that time just running very, very conservatively through the loop. I think everybody's staggering on their rubber. Yeah, I think what will be going through everyone's mind at the moment is just, can I get the thing home without getting a puncture or the tyre just completely disintegrating? Certainly Jim Richards has fallen away from the back of John Bow. He's holding station at the moment with his teammate George Fury. The order: Bow, Richards, Fury, Dick Johnson, Glenn Seaton 5th, Tony Longhurst 6th, Brad Jones 7th, Alan Moffat 8th, Andrew Madecki 9th, and Mark Gibbs is 10th.
Well, Richards has been losing about not far off a second a lap to Bow over the last 2 or 3 laps. So
and Dick, with his new left rear, has been about a second a lap faster than John Bow. He's been in around the 53s. And John is at the high end of the 54s, even creeping into the 55s in some of these late laps now. So the pace has fallen well away.
Through the just left-hander at Honda. Bow stretches out, running down to the lake.
Brad Jones, who's 7th, he's got a couple of 100 metres on John Bow at the moment. And I think he'll survive without being lapped. Everybody else beyond that's been lapped at least once.
But a very enterprising start for the Nissan team.
Yeah, some encouraging pointers there, really. The strengths in the day, obviously the 2 Nissans. We can look forward to strong stuff from them this year. Glenn Seaton, great performance from him. Brand new car. And also excellent performance from Brad Jones. Interesting qualifying performance, I should say, from Peter Brock. And I thought that perhaps Tony Longhurst would be able to niggle the Shell cars a little bit more today. Maybe they didn't quite get onto the right rubber. But by gee, predicting who's going to be the hero of the Touring Car Series this year is going to be an awfully tough task.
Bow once again across the start-finishing line, holding about that same gap over Jimmy Richards. Then a similar gap back to George Fury in car number 3. Johnson closing quickly in 4th place, but I don't think we'll have the number of laps required to, or the time, more importantly, to be able to haul in the 2 Nissans.
Oh, and Brad Jones has just had a big lose going through the loop. There he is. I said before he wasn't going to be lapped. Whoops. Now he is. He's come out in front of George Fury.
And that would be a good example of what we were just saying about the tyres going off, I think.
Yeah, just such a delicate balance trying to keep the things on the island in the closing stages.
We estimate we've got only a couple of minutes left in this race, so Bow will lead them once again up Bitchapave Hill. Richards still running in 2nd and 3rd spot, held by George Fury. Anything more than another lap and a bit, and I tell you what, I think Johnson will be right on Fury's tail. Through the loop, the exit there, and the run down now to Mazda Corner. He's driven superbly here today, John Bow. Just a beautiful start off the 2nd line.
He's an ace. He's twice Australian driving champion. He was brilliant in open wheelers. We saw him rubbing shoulders with the very best in the world when the Formula Mondial cars encouraged some of the Formula 1 drivers to come out and drive them.
Coming on the run out of Lake Corner now. Time just about out. Car number 18, John Bow, coming to the start-finishing line. And I would think this will be pretty close to the last lap.
I haven't been given a board yet. Until they're given the board. And I reckon that there'll be a lot of relief inside John Bow's helmet when he sees that board.
Well, if we do have another 1.5 laps left, I tell you what's going to be a close finish for 3rd place between Georgie Fury. I'd expect to see John Bow this time around, car number 18, on the run down to the right-hander. Great start for John. Alan Moffat has stayed close to him since had a lap put on him, and in fact is trying to get that lap back as they come up to the start finishing straight again, and the checkered flag will come out, and Bow takes round number 1 today at Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. But a sensational finish for second and third going to the Nissan team of Jimmy Richards in car number 2 and George Fury in car number 3. And Dick Johnson, the defending champion, finishes back in 4th place. 1 hour almost on the knocker for John Bow in car number 18. The young driver from Devonport. Let's check them again for you on the Caltex race score. John Bow is the winner of round number 1. Jim Richards for Nissan runs second. Fury for Nissan is third. Dick Johnson is fourth. And rounding out the 5, Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra.
Try and generate some warmth into tyres, some heat into the brakes. There are the 2 Nissans that went so well last weekend, Jim Richards and George Fury, second and third in the opening round.
I expect they'll have 2 warm-up laps unless they've changed the rules without notifying anybody, which they...
Slams it into gear and smokes them off the line.
Yeah, Brock made a shocking start. One of the cars has gone off onto the grass already, and Peter popped the clutch, the wheels spun, and then it really snagged itself and then lit off again. But he's a long, long way back from Dick Johnson. It's a real crush to the first corner, but Johnson has streeted the pack.
Yeah, but he's got up alongside of him, I think, coming down the back straight for the first time. That could be Alan Moffat's ANZ Sierra that we saw out on the grass. Okay, down the back chute, and it's Dick Johnson just leading. Peter Brock's made up all that ground. Johnny Bow sits back there in 3rd spot. Then going through is Colin Bond.
I'm sorry, Mike, it was the ANZ car that came off to the side of the circuit, maybe a transmission failure, and Tony Longhurst in strife as well.
Yes, it hasn't got off the line at all. Tony Longhurst in the Benson and Hedges Sierra.
And officials scattering off the track as the cars come round and pass that point again.
Yellow flags out now as Dick Johnson will lead them across the start-finishing line. Still clear. There you can see, well, that is not the best spot in the world to be parked for Tony Longhurst. In fact, I think it is.
Johnson's under threat here as Brock closes in under brakes. And John Bow goes roaring up into the back of Brock.
Gives him a tap in the tail.
Really had to lock it up and lurch in and try and save himself from nailing the back of the mobile car.
So the Shell car's 1-3 at this stage. Peter Brock in the Mobile Sierra runs in 2nd spot down through the sweeper on the way down the back straight. Johnson comfortably clear of Peter Brock and Bow. Then a gap back to Colin Bond being the next one. Andrew Bagnall running strongly too in the Gulliver's Travel Sierra.
Bagnall, a big surprise in qualifying, coming off 5th position on the grid.
He's being pressured at the moment by Brad Jones, who's got Madecki behind him, and then Richards and Fury. Now, the top 3 have just opened up a little bit in this last lap.
There's Brock through. Next is John Bow. Then we'll catch Colin Bond being the next one behind them.
Andrew Bagnall, Brad Jones, Andrew Madecki, Jim Richards, George Fury, Neville Crichton, and Glenn Seaton.
John Bow from Devonport, Tasmanian favourite for today's race with spectators. He runs 3rd on the track at the moment.
Well, a bit hectic there for the first couple of kilometres, but things have settled back down again. The boys were having a big go. And Longhurst and Moffat both out on the starting line. So that's thinned the ranks in the midfield.
There's Bow running in 3rd. We'll wait and see who the gap. There's Colin Bond in the Caltex Sierra. He's running 4th on the track at the moment.
Andrew Bagnall just behind him, followed by Brad Jones.
Striking colour scheme there on the Caltex car today. It's the scheme that's been used on the Kenny Matthews in the 2nd of the Caltex Sierras. Maybe adopted by Colin for the remainder of the series. Jimmy Richards staying in touch too, and the Nissan. There's George Fury, the next one through, followed by Neville Crichton.
Brad Jones being attacked a bit now by Andrew Madecki. Jones, his 2nd drive of the Turbo Ford Sierra, having joined the mobile team for 89. Coming to grips with this car. Looks like it could be a good scrap, this one, with 4 cars buying into it. Not too far adrift from these guys are the 2 Nissans, Richards and Fury.
And up front, Johnson's a handy leader now, but Bow right on the tailpipe of Peter Brock.
Through Coca-Cola curve.
Bond able to fend off the challenge from Andrew Bagnall, and Brad Jones doing a good job in the second of the Brockmobiles.
And watch also as this race wears on, because I have no question that the Nissans will come through the field as life in the tyre lane gets a bit ugly for some of the Sierras, particularly those who've burned up rubber early on.
And you can't see it, but I can tell you Alan Moffat making the long and lonely walk back to the pits after having failed basically to get off the grid.
That's not the first time for Alan at Symmons Plains, when they overcooked, as I recall, the Mazda on one day by putting a skirt on the front of it to try and build up some heat, and they did just that. The thing boiled on the line and barely got away. Once again, Brad Jones. Little pressure on here, down on the inside. Good pass on Andrew Bagnall. A youngster with a big future.
These cars, as we mentioned last weekend, are from the Rouse stable. They ran last year in Calibre colours. Did very well in the British Touring Car Championship, and Andy Rouse, in fact, in the car that Brock is driving, won the Silverstone TT. Colin Bond's been doing a little bit of development work on this car. Peter Brock in second place here in the 05 car, and the second of the Shell Sierras in third position, John Bow. Dick Johnson just spring away a little bit, and I'll start to get some times on these guys and see how hard they're pushing in the early stages. What I can tell you is the gap from Dick Johnson back to Peter Brock is 1.6 seconds. So Dick's just been able to take a little bit of the pressure off himself now in the first few laps of the event, after having to work pretty hard with Peter Brock there in the first couple of laps. Ross Burbage in the Nissan, just off to the left-hand side of your screen. Didn't take long to put a lap on him. Such is the pace of these cars. They are unbelievably fast in a straight line.
And the disappointed Tony Longhurst just walking underneath our commentary position and heading back towards the pit area as well, also having failed to get a start in this race.
I was quite surprised because the track was just a tad greasy at the start, but Johnson lit up like a dragster and took off.
Peter Brock's start was not a comfortable one, but then he made up a lot of ground on Johnson in the first lap. He was right on the back of the car. Just lost touch with him slightly now. We're not talking about very much distance, though.
58 seconds flying lap time for Dick Johnson.
We're talking about lap record speed, 57.94 for John Bow last year.
So he's right on
it. The gap from Bow in third position back to Colin Bond in fourth. It's already quite large because we can see Bond coming underneath the Dunlop Bridge on the straight as these guys turn left at the hairpin. It's 7.9 seconds already.
They take off down through the back sweeper. There's Johnson disappearing. Brock, Bow is the next one back behind him, and they'll have a look at the gap back to the second group with Colin Bond, Brad Jones in there as well, Andrew Bagnall. There's Jimmy Richards in the Nissan Skyline, the GTSR Turbo. He's been gaining on that group.
Madecki has got past Brad Jones, so Madecki now working onto the back of Colin Bond. Jim Richards.
The Nissan's wanting for horsepower, and this is the track where they can't afford that disadvantage, but Jim will wring out every ounce that he can out of this car to try and stay in touch with the front-running cars, and in the hope that maybe it will start to rain, which will advantage him, and just awaiting perhaps a mishap up front to take the chance.
So they are Bond, Madecki, Jones, Bagnall, Richards, then Fury just in the background.
Not too far back behind Fury, Neville Crichton, and then Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra.
Rain coming down.
There's a bit of a sprinkle at the moment.
Not enough to worry the boys at the moment, but might give them something to think about a little bit later on.
Well, it's going to be a difficult stop if they do have to come in and change to wet weather tyres, because the pit area here is so constricted. If they all decided to come in at once...
Well, they won't be all coming in at once, that's for sure. whether they want to or not. There just isn't the room.
Jimmy Richards,
85 and 87 Australian touring car champion. First year with Nissan. Ventured back across the pond last night to run in the Oscar race and was a likely winner until about 10 laps from home when that tyre let go. Look at Andrew Medecky now getting very close to the back of Colin Bond. The Caltex car defending from the Kenwood Hi-Fi entry. And Andrew had a lot of problems just getting comfortable with his car this weekend. And they've worked and worked and worked, and he even went out this morning and continued to test behind some other fields when they were racing. Now seems to have the car back on the money and working well. Dulux Auto Colour race cam from Colin Bond looking back towards Andrew Medecky. Listen how gently Colin has to use the throttle. Gently, gently, then whacks it when he gets into a straight line. And that is the big question mark for all of the runners today, and pretty well all of the cars. It's a circuit that tends to really destroy the working side tyres, the right-hand side. And while yesterday it was a blast to see who could sort of reach spaceship speed, today it's a go for conservative running. Look at this shot on the inside as Medecky forces a way through. Good passing manoeuvre from Medecky. Now Bondi comes back. Has a glance in the mirror. He knows that Jones and Bagnall aren't too close, so that means he can concentrate on Andrew Medecky.
Medecky's got him outgunned.
Great pitch there from the Dulux Auto Colour race cam as we go down to the end of the back straight towards the left-hander. And Colin Bond trying to stick with Andrew Medecky in the Kenwood Sierra. And he hasn't had the best of starts to the championship so far. Last week we saw him come through the field at Amaroo Park, and he's doing exactly the same here today at Symmons Plains in round 2. Getting it a tad sideways, coming out of there, beneath the bridge, and on the run up to the hairpin turn. Another group sitting behind, including Brad Jones.
Race leader Dick Johnson. In fact,
the sand trap down here with
Matt Wacker tangling up with George Fury. And damage to the front left-hand side of Fury's car, flat left front. And Matt Wacker's Holden Commodore number 42 has just stopped. And he's just going back into the pits, reversing into the pits, unusual.
So I don't know what that's covered in the rule book. But George Fury's got problems. I think he will be heading for the pits the next time around.
Wacker goes behind the pit wall, front right-hand corner of his Commodore looking a bit average. Very disappointing for George Fury, who was looking forward to a good run this afternoon.
A lot of damage there on the front left of Fury's car.
Well, let's hope that it's just wheel and tyre and nothing more, because that may be able to be sorted out. So Dick Johnson, Peter Brock, John Bowe, Andrew Medecky, Colin Bond, Brad Jones and Andrew Bagnall, the order at the moment, as the leaders put a lap on George Fury.
George trying to limp back to the pits and stay out of harm's way, stay off the racing line. There he is, heading into the pits now. In the meantime,
they've got radios in the car, so Fred Gibson will be aware of the problem. The boys should be ready to do something pretty well instantaneously.
What is interesting, Johnson from Brock. Yep. There's one chunk, Yokohama. Checking out any damage there. Fresh wheel and rubber goes on. At the moment, as they head down the back straight, the order unchanged. Dick Johnson, car number 17, leading from Peter Brock in 05. Then, of course, John Bowe in car number 18. They have opened up quite a sizable gap over the rest of the field.
Andrew Medecky in 4th spot, followed by Colin Bond.
And here is our race leader, defending Australian Touring Car champ, Dick Johnson.
He's got exactly 2 seconds on Peter Brock, who's drawn away a little bit now from John Bowe. In fact, it's more than just a little bit. I'll give you the gap, and the gap from Brock back to Bowe, 4.4 seconds. Okay, let's take a look at those placings. And Dick Johnson, the race leader at the moment, with a healthy 2-second gap over Peter Brock, but he is closing. John Bow in third position. Further back in fourth, we have Andrew Madecki in car number 6. And rounding out the top 5 on the Caltex race score is Colin Bond.
Eddie Murphy's a cop on vacation in Beverly Hills. He has a score to settle with the mob.
Give me a kiss, baby!
And nothing's gonna stand in his way.
You know, this is the cleanest and nicest police.
Tasmania, Brad Jones and Andrew Bagnall still scrapping midfield at this stage of the race.
6th and 7th, Mike. And interestingly enough, just been handed a piece of paper to say that Andrew Bagnall and the Gulliver's Travel car this weekend have taken off the Dulux Auto Colour Best Presented Car Award. That's an award presented by ICI Dulux at each of the 8 rounds of the Touring Car Championship this year.
Well, he was terrific in practice yesterday, surprised a lot of people, Andrew Bagnall. Running very smoothly in the race at the moment, as is this guy, young Bradley Jones. We've already watched some of the coverage of the Moomba Oscar race earlier. Brad Jones ran in, finished a very comfortable 3rd in last night at Calder Thunderdome. More comfortable than Christopher Dean, I would think.
Jones started on a harder compound tyre than Peter Brock, and he's hoping that he'll be able to run out a nice, hard, consistent pace for the entire 1 hour. So he thought that in the beginning of the race it was going to be pretty hard to stay anywhere in touch with the leaders, but I should think he'd be pretty comfortable with his position at the moment. And as you said, Andrew Bagnall did a great job in qualifying yesterday. It was a terrific performance from him. Let's go down to the pits with Richard Hay.
Thank you, Neil. Well, tragedy for 2 runners at the start of today's race, Tony Longhurst and Alan Moffat. Tony Longhurst's problem, I should tell you, was that the discs on the car welded to the brake pads, and he burnt the clutch out on the start line. Alan Moffat, what happened to you?
Well, I didn't want to add to that complication and drive straight into him. I had 2 choices. Stop myself, which would have been absolutely useless. There was a gap between Tony and the wall, and I just touched the wall, and I mean about that much, and buckled my front wheel, gave me an instant puncture.
It just about capped a fairly awful week for you, didn't it?
Well, we bashed it around more than in the last 7 days or 8 days than we have in the last whole year, so it's well and truly ready for battle now.
Tragedy then for Alan Moffat and Tony Longhurst at the start of today's race. Dick Johnson still out in front.
Thank you, Richard. There's Glenn Seaton running back in the pack today. Great debut for the Peter Jackson Sierra team at Amaroo Park last weekend. Putting a lot of development Ks into this car. But at this stage, he's trailing even the Nissans here today at Symmons Plains, and started out at position number 9.
Yeah, Glenn this morning was a little bit disappointed with the form of their car. They expected to come down here and run a little bit harder than they did last weekend. They've been working on the car back in Melbourne, and was hoping to extract a little bit more from the engine management system on the car, but thinks that maybe they've gone in the wrong direction. So when they get back to Melbourne next week, they're going to put their heads down on the dyno and start to put in some pretty hard work to come up with some answers before they go to round 3 at Lakeside. But even listening to the car or standing and watching the car from the pit lane, you can see quite comfortably that it's slower in a straight line than, say, the cars of Johnson, Brock, Bow and company.
Still comfortably putting a lap there on Joe Sommariva in the BMW 635. And watch out for Seaton as the season unfolds. Loads of potential both in driver and the car. Out of the Nissan team of last year to set up on his own. Big undertaking.
It was interesting to go down to the workshops and have a look inside there, Gary. They've done a lovely job setting up their operation. And it's a smart looking car. They've just got to squeeze a little bit more horsepower out of it.
I feel sorry for Tony Longhurst. His car sitting there on the left of screen because they had found a fraction more horsepower since Amaroo last week. He thought they'd picked up about a half a second a lap.
Here's the Dulux race cam as we look out the rear of Colin Bond's Caltex Sierra. And the man closing on him is Brad Jones in the 105 Mobile Sierra. They've both passed Chris Lambden in the Bow Repairs Group A Commodore. And I think it's young Bradley who in fact is closing on Bondi. Getting closer lap after lap.
Bond is currently 5th, Jones 6th, and Bagnall in 7th.
Beneath the Dunlop Bridge. Heading up to the hairpin corner now. There's Chris Landon coming through. Bagnall back a spot behind them.
Back at the front of the race, 3.3 seconds is the gap between race leader Dick Johnson and Peter Brock in second spot.
And it's now 4.7 seconds from Brock back to Bow. And Dick Johnson is about to put another lap on George Fury, who's had a new front left fitted. So he goes down 2 laps on the race leader. There's Jones, former Mitsubishi Rally Art driver. He's done a good job. Just rounded up Colin Bond. Came out of there nice and square, got his power to the ground. Moves up a spot to 5th. So it's an excellent drive from him. Andrew Madecki in the foreground in 4th place. So 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th we could see on screen there. Take a look again at Dulux race cam and see whether Bondi has an answer. Brad's car just pulling away a little bit in a straight line. In fact, pulling away quite a bit in a straight line. There's the race leader, Dick Johnson, with Peter Brock in the background. They're coming up on Neville Crichton. So just to recap those for you again, we've got Dick Johnson still in the lead, about 3.3 seconds back to Peter Brock. Then John Bow about 4.8 seconds behind. Further back in 4th, it's Andrew Madecki. And then Brad Jones now moving up into 5th place. So the 2 Shell and the 2 Mobil cars doing very well. Jim Richards still lurking away behind the Ford Sierras at the moment.
Been a familiar number and a winning number throughout 88. The order's still 17. Dick Johnson running away. Let's recap them for you on our race score, sponsored by Caltex. Race leader is Dickie Johnson in car number 17, running 2nd on the road at the moment, 0.5. Of course, is Peter Brock. 18 is John Bow. Then right back behind them, Andrew Madecki and Brad Jones rounding out the 5.
7 laps. That's Peter Brock, 0.5 in the Mobil Sierra on screen, and he is in 2nd place in pursuit of Dick Johnson.
Sorry to interrupt, Gary. I think we've lost Brad Jones somewhere, who was in 5th position.
Yep, slowing down here, coming around towards the pit entry. So that's bad luck for the Mobil team. In fact, Brock is about to pass his teammate as he comes round here towards the pit area. You'll see Brad Jones on the inside of the track. Maybe you won't.
Dick Johnson to Peter Brock, 3.3 seconds. Peter Brock to John Bow, 4.4 seconds.
Jones is in the pit. He was in 5th position, Brad Jones. Well, it was a very cursory look under the bonnet.
I think it was a belt.
The gloves are off. That's the end of the day for Jones.
Disappointment for him after an excellent drive. So that shuffles Colin Bond back into 5th. So Andrew Madecki 4th, Colin Bond 5th, Andrew Bagnall 6th. And there is the first of the Holden Commodores in the field, the Borough Pairs entry, Chris Lambden. Car that Peter Brock took to victory in the 1987 James Hardy 1000. Since then it's been up-spec'd, and Chris Lambden running it last year at the Tooheys 1000 with Tasmanian driver Kerry Bailey.
Well, one of the motor racing press, Chris Lambden, put together a deal with Bow Repairs to enter Group A touring car racing. He's been making a good fist of it too.
He's in position 12 at the moment.
He's the only one.
Oh, John Bow in the pits. he dropped away a little bit from Peter Brock, which was something of a surprise. So that's going to bring Andrew Madecki up into third, Colin Bond to fourth, Andrew Bagnall to fifth. I wonder what that's all about.
I don't know, but they've been in the
They've
pits
changed both fronts.
30-odd seconds. So it was certainly not a quick stop. And oh, did you see that Marshall get out of the way? Quick smart. As Bow fishtailed through the gate and back onto the track.
On the subject of Holden, spoke with Larry Perkins during the week, and he's announced his plans for 89. He'll be running his Group A Commodore and selected Touring Car Championship events.
We're past the halfway mark in this 1 hour second round of the Touring Car Championship.
And then he hopes to run 2 cars in all the long distance races, Sandown, Bathurst and beyond. And he was due to have a run last night, Oscar racing, until Christopher Dean turned the Commodore into a short wheelbase number. But there's some chance that maybe Larry will be seen in his own Oscar Commodore a little bit later on. So that's something to look forward to for Holden fans.
Certainly is.
John Bow trying to make up lost ground with that pit stop. Johnson continues to lead the race from Brock, Madecki, Bond, Bagnall. Then Jim Richards, Glenn Seaton and John Bow. So he's back on the track in 7th position.
Information that we had from the pits was that the fact that Johnny Bow had a tyre that deflated on him.
And they took the opportunity to change both fronts.
Dick Johnson to Peter Brock is now 4.3 seconds.
So half race distance gone, and Johnson has a comfortable lead at this stage over Brock, who just can't bridge the gap. Any pressure that John Bow might have mounted on the top 2 faded when he had to make that compulsory pit stop. And it's going to be left now to Andrew Madecki.
I noticed that Brock was just pumping his brakes a little bit down the back straight that last time through. So brake pad wear will certainly start to play a part in this race from about this point on.
Bow coming up on Glenn Seaton at the moment. He'll wring the neck out of the second Sierra now for the second part of the race. Wouldn't be happy with having to take time out in the pits for a deflated tyre.
Peter Brock has got a 28-second gap over Andrew Madecki in 3rd place.
It's a strong buffer. Let's check out what's happening in the pits. Richard Hay.
Well, I should tell you that John Bow's problem was a punctured tyre, nothing more serious than that. But Brad Jones, we were talking yesterday, and after the Oscar race, he said you'd be delighted to finish 3rd. After Bow's problem, you would have been 4th. Were it not for that problem, what was it?
We broke a timing belt. It's just one of those things, I guess. I was taking 4th gear down the back straight, and the lights came on, everything stopped very quickly, so I cruised around the pits and the guy said, you know, bad luck, we've done a belt, that's it for the day. So it's one of those unfortunate things.
The Brock Sierras seem to be going better and better and better. Is Peter's car all right as far as you know?
Yeah, Peter's car's fine, it's doing great as you can see. My car's feeling just as well, up until it broke. The cars are really a credit to the guys that put in a lot of hard work since we got them, and it's showing today.
37-ish, 38 laps down, something like that. We're certainly...
Terry Sawyer, car number 33, Toyota's Search for a Star. Terry is one of the stars.
Well, she picked up $5 in the Oscar race at Calder yesterday. That wasn't too shabby. This is the lady that won the first ever Oscar race held at Calder. In fact, she won about $15,000 total prize money in Oscar racing last season.
It's a little different, the Symmons Plains circuit to running the oval at Calder. But she's one of some great talent that we'll be seeing in guest driving in the Toyota during the course of the season. Brooke Tatnell, one of the leading lights of the sprint car set. Terry, let's take a look at Terry. She's 18 years of age, comes from Melbourne, driving today in the Toyota Corolla. 1981 Australian Sub-Junior Karting Champion. Second in the Victoria Junior titles, 81, 82, 83, and so forth and so forth. Victorian Karter of the Year in 85, and winner of the very first Oscar race. And that's the lady we're following today. Driving the Toyota, Oh, what a feeling for Terry Sawyer. She's had a big weekend running the bowl at Thunderdome last night, and then, of course, fronting up in the Toyota. And we may even see her at Bathurst, depending on how the other drivers turn out now.
The idea with the Toyota Star Search program is to give 8 young drivers an opportunity to have a go at the big time. 8 different drivers, 8 different locations, and the top 2 drivers will be given the chance to drive in this year's Tooheys 1000. A great break from Toyota for the youngsters in Australian motorsport. And she's chasing her teammate John Faulkner in the number 32 car.
So Dick Johnson, car number 17, stretches it out going down the back straight, still leading from 0-5 Brock. Andrew Madecki in car number 6.
5 seconds approximately now, the break between Johnson and Brock, first to second. So,
then, of course, Colin Bond, car number 4, and Andrew Bagnall, car number 8, that's been running in there. There's Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra. There's the speed difference between the little Toyota class car and the outright running Sierra Ford of Glenn Seaton, car number 30.
What this does mean is the point situation in the championship is very interesting. But let's take a look at the Caltex race score situation, and Dick Johnson is still clearly the leader with about a 5-second gap over Peter Brock in second. In third place, we have Andrew Madecki. That's been a great drive. In fourth, car number 4, Colin Bond in the Caltex entry. And rounding out the top 5, car number 8, Andrew Bagnall. Back in a moment.
Benson and Hedges Sierra, driven by Neville Crichton, runs 9th in the field at the moment. Neville's had a pretty fair run today in the number 20 car. Frank Gardner, Tony Longhurst running a 2-car team. It was bad luck that Tony didn't get off the start line. Neville at least keeping the profile up there, 9th on the track at the moment.
Tell you what is interesting, this move here at the moment. There goes John Bowe coming back up through the field like you wouldn't believe to 4th position, round the outside of Colin Bond. Dulux Auto Colour Race Cam shows the story, and with some new rubber on the front and plenty of grit and determination, Bowe wants his placing back. And at the moment, he's chasing Andrew Madecki. He's only 3.4 seconds behind him. That's an amazing charge.
Going past one of the lusty boys, running the Steelmark Commodore. Yes, you're right there. He has really rung the neck of the second Sierra for the Shell team at the moment. Coming up over the hump and down to the left-hander.
Well, the gap between Johnson and Brock has remained pretty static. It's 5 odd seconds. Bowe is really going for it at the moment. There's Madecki in 3rd, Bowe in 4th, Bond in 5th.
So Dick Johnson, car 17, still our race leader from Peter Brock in 0-5. Andrew Madecki in car number 6 is 3rd, but closing on him and all over him at the moment is certainly John Bowe in car number 18.
I tell you what, it's not inconceivable that Johnson and possibly even Brock could lap everybody in this race, because the gap from Peter Brock back to Andrew Madecki is enormous. I've got the watch running. It's out to 23, 24 seconds, and I've still got half the track to come by yet. I'll give it to you when it eventually happens. This is John Bowe making an assault now for 3rd place.
Local spectators love this. Sits in the draft now of Andrew Madecki in the Kenwood Blast Dynamics car. Switches to the outside in the second Shell Sierra car number 18. Tries to out-drag him down to the corner here and pull across the front of him. Madecki goes in tight, locks a brake doing that.
Got him.
And that's just a beautiful pass from John Bowe. Very, very determined here today for a rather partisan home crowd.
Well, he's 40 seconds behind Peter Brock, John Bowe. So that's been an incredible charge through the field, leaving Andrew Madecki in 4th, Colin Bond in 5th. And what betting at the moment that John Bowe's doing lap record times. I reckon he's flying. We'll try and get an accurate time on him next time through.
Pretty close to it. 17, Dick Johnson is our race leader. 05, Peter Brock still runs in second. 18, John Bow now up to third. 6, Andrew Madecki is in fourth place. And 4, Colin Bond is in fifth place. We've been following John Bow back through the traffic here today at Symmons Plains. Let's take a look at how they're running on our Caltex race score at the moment. Race leader Dickie Johnson doing it for the Shell team, leads from Peter Brock in car number 05 up to third. What a drive. Johnny Bow in car number 18. Fourth spot held down by Hand.
I love a sunburned country, a land of sweeping plains, of ragged mountain ranges, of droughts and flooding rains.
Our championship continues. Trying to show you as many cars as we can this afternoon in the field. Here's the man running 14th at the moment. Gerald Kay. And Gerald has been a regular on the Australian Touring Car Championship circuit for a number of years. It's a long haul over here to Tasmania from the mainland, just to, as a lot of people would think, to make up the field, but it's more than that involved for guys like Gerald Kay, the Lusty brothers and so forth, Chris Lambert. They're there competing as privateers. Gerald doing a good job out there in the Jag Parts Commodore.
Should mention, Mike, that Andrew Madecki pitted a moment ago for about 35-40 seconds to take on new front tyres, and he's dropped out of the top 5. So the revised order is now Dick Johnson 6 seconds ahead of Peter Brock, then John Bow about 35 seconds behind Peter Brock, then Colin Bond in 4th place, and now moving into the top 5, Jim Richards, although he's not very far away from being lapped by race leader Dick Johnson. Dulux Auto Colour Race Cam, Colin Bond at the wheel. And about to come through the tight left-hander past the pits where he'll get a pit signal. You can see him wrestling a fairly slippery car this late in the race. Into 5th gear as he goes down a fairly long straight here, and then they make a run into the tightest hairpin in Australian motor racing, where he goes right back to 1st gear, 180 degrees. And the big squirt down the back straight, which has got a long right-hander. He's already been passed by John Bow. Graham Lusty, car number 21. Steel mark Holden Commodore. As Mike said before, many of the privateers go up and down the country at great expense. He's in 13th position at the moment, doing a fine job. Often we don't get a chance to show some of the guys back in the field, but with them spreading out a little bit at the head, we thought we'd go back and take a look, and he's doing an excellent job at the moment. He's the second of the Commodores behind Chris Lambden. Oops, almost running out of road there. And he's already a couple of laps down on Dick Johnson. So give you an idea again of what that revised order after a few changes. Dick Johnson 6 seconds out, car number 17 in front of Peter Brock, car 05. John Bow, car 18 in 3rd. Colin Bond, car 4 in 4th. And Jim Richards, car 2, now moving up to 5th. And Andrew Madecki trying to come back through the field, much the same as John Bow did after taking on some new front tyres. And I don't think that Brock is going to be able to catch Johnson, although it's been a superlative drive. One of the Toyotas, incidentally, is speared into the grass over near the sheep. Oh, hang on, that's everywhere. It's right up on the other end of the circuit. Ten minutes to go in this race. Peter Brock threading his way through traffic and doing everything in his power now to try and catch Dick Johnson. And he's really struggling a little bit with some of the traffic. There's Lusty sweeping through beneath the Dunlop Bridge.
So it's been, I wouldn't say the easiest of races today for Dick Johnson. He's had to keep the pressure on. Let's take a look at the Caltex race score as we pick up on the top 5. Dickie Johnson of Queensland leads the parade, 0-5. Peter Brock runs in second. Great drive, car number 18, John Bow in third place. In fourth, of course, the driver of car number 4, Colin Bond, and rounding out the 5 for Nissan, car number 2, Jimmy Richards.
They say it's the little things that mean something.
Early in the race with Matt Wacker. He's about to put a lap on Jim Richards, who just lost some ground in the break, was in 5th, and Glenn Seaton has now come up to 5th place. The interesting thing is that Dick Johnson's times have come back to 60 seconds plus now in the closing stages of this race. So tyres and brakes are really starting to feel it after almost an hour of racing. Johnson still about 6 odd seconds out from Peter Brock. I'll check the gap for you once again. Jim Richards, I'd say, is about to be lapped by Dick Johnson, which is an incredible switch about from last weekend, although there's no question that the Nissan's a more comfortable vehicle at Amaroo Park than it is at Symmons Plains. Actually, that gap Johnson to Brock has now come down again to 5.1 seconds. So I'd say Peter's throwing absolutely everything he can at Dick now, with only a few minutes to go. So the order room: Dick Johnson, Peter Brock, John Bow, Colin Bond in 4th, Glenn Seaton in 5th, Jim Richards in 6th, and he's the car that you just had a glimpse of in front of Dick Johnson. Andrew Bagnall, incidentally, just went off the boil all of a sudden about 10 minutes ago, and that was why he dropped back down through the order. We don't have any idea of the problem. We've endeavoured to find out, but nobody seems to know, including his crew at the moment. Maybe it's tyres or boost has fallen away on that car. Actually, Glenn Seaton, I think, is moving up and passing Andrew Madecki now. So Seaton, a bit of a late charger in this race. Oh, I should say Colin Bond. My apologies. So there we look at Dulux Race Cam. Seaton now moves up into 4th place, and he was in no man's land 30-40 minutes ago, and he's really come good at the end.
Well, I think he conserved in the first half of the race. Everyone else was a little round sideways and so forth. Made life a little easier for Seaton as we take our race cam in the Peter Jackson Sierra, car number 30, to the hairpin corner at Brambles. He heads off down the back straight.
Just a little bit of rain falling, but I don't think it's going to do much. And that's the view from Colin Bond's car chasing Glenn Seaton.
We've had almost the 4 seasons of weather here today at Symmons Plains. The threat of a downpour just prior to the start. Little drizzle during the race. Our race leader, of course, is Dick Johnson of Queensland, all going together nicely in round 2 here today at Symmons Plains. Still opening that gap a little over Peter Brock. He comes up now on Jimmy Richards in car number 2 to put a lap on Jim. As you said, far cry from last weekend at Sydney's Amaroo Park. This is quite a horsepower circuit, and the Nissans have felt the pinch here today at the expense of the very, very strong running Sierras.
Lakeside presents an interesting layout, though. We'll see some fireworks up there, no doubt. Richo really clinging onto his place there. But this will give you an idea of the difference in grunt between the cars. Just watch the gap open up down this back straight. Lakeside is probably more suited to the Nissans, the way the car handles. Look at the gap that Dick Johnson enjoys after that sprint down the back straight.
Johnson coming out of Coca-Cola corner. The sprint down. There's Neville Crichton just ahead of him, about to put the lap on Neville. Pretty tight through there, just the same. The Johnson swings to the outside. Oh, that was a move and a half.
He decided to back away from it. Yep. There's no point with a 5-second gap over Peter Brock trying to plunge past Neville in the last couple of minutes. Just going to double check that gap from Johnson to Brock again. It's 3.9 seconds. Now I know why Dick's starting to
pick the pace
get a little bit twitchy. And Johnson finds himself in the middle of a bunch of traffic at the moment. That's not helping his cause, but then it's not going to help Peters either when he gets around there. He's kept the hammer really on him all the way to the flag. It sounds easy when we sit up here and dismiss it as, oh, it's just 3 or 4 seconds, but that's not very much. There's Brock in the background. We reckon there's maybe a lap or 2 to go. And they do 50-odd second laps, so I think we're going to get another couple of laps out of this race. It would have to be a miracle if Peter could get up and actually do anything. Mind you, he's come from miracle positions before, hasn't he?
Yep. Out of Bramble's hairpin and working his way down the back straight.
Double check that gap again from Johnson to Brock. And it's 4 seconds.
Can't see that changing. There's Colin Bond, so Dick is going to come up and put a lap on Colin Bond before the finish of this race.
It's going to be touch and go on a checkered flag here.
Be fairly close, I would think. Everything has fallen into place for Dickie Johnson, coming up to the pit corner, about to sweep out of there. And here it is, the checkered flag going out for Dick Johnson as he sweeps across the start-finishing line. And he will pick up the win here today at Symmons Plains. Great for Dick Johnson and the Shell team. Waiting for the gap to show you Peter Brock come through in 0.5, who will pick up the second spot.
He was 4.6 seconds behind as the flag fell. Great drive.
What a great finish too for John Bow in car number 18, who will pick up third after that pit stop and coming storming back through the pack. Let's have a look on the Caltex race score, how they've finished in round 2 in the Australian Touring Car Championship. The win going to Dick Johnson in car number 17. Second place officially goes to Peter Brock in the Mobile Sierra 05, and third to the second of the Johnson Sierras, John Bow in car number 18. Fantastic performance for Dick Johnson last weekend. I guess a scare or two at Amaroo Park, just how competitive the rest of the field were at the opening round of the championship. It's been a little easier here today.
I unofficially make it John Bow with 32 points and Dick Johnson with 30 points. I haven't had a real good chance to have a look at all this. Got bits of paper everywhere, but whatever the situation, the Shell cars are still dominating the series, but by gee, aren't they working hard?
Well, Johnson deserves victory here today at Symmons Plains. He got off the starting line like a rocket alongside Peter Brock. That'll please his team no end. I think also a great fighting second from 05 driver Peter Brock, the Mobile Sierra. Gary Wilkinson is on the spot with Dick Johnson. I thought he was going to drag him out of the car for a quick chat. Let's go down to Wilco.
Congratulations, Dick. That was sensational and certainly made up for the disappointments of the first round at Amaroo.
Yeah, it certainly is. You know, this morning I didn't know whether I had a car that was quite good enough to do the job, because we had a few problems with the handling, but the boys changed the setup completely and it's fantastic.
Same old Dick Johnson routine, get to the front and make them chase.
One can only hope.
You told me this morning you wish you had the other car.
Yeah, well, actually, it's a ripper car, that other car. It's the best car I've ever had. And we're slowly but surely getting this one up to speed.
Well, the congratulations, as usual, from John Rowe, the National Marketing Manager for Shell Australia, for Dick Johnson and the Garland to go with it. Great victory. And, of course, with John Bow coming in third place today, that consolidates your position in the championship after just 2 rounds.
Yeah, well, that means he's in front of me, mate. I've got to try hard, haven't I?
Well, you've got some work to do.
Exactly.
So, from here to Lakeside, and I guess you'll feel pretty much at home there.
Well, you know what it's like, mate. You'll know what it's all about up there shortly. Lakeside's a fabulous place to be, and I'm really looking forward to the race there. It's always a good race, and I think it'll be just like Amaroo. It'll be a lot closer. You know, this actually gave us an advantage, this circuit, but we'll see what Lakeside brings.
Great effort today by Dick Johnson, winner of the second round of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. Unfortunately, we're out of time, and we are. Peter Brock, quick, we've got 30 seconds. Great effort to get pole here and to chase this man all the way.
Yeah, it was very good fun, actually. So surprising to have a cornering duel and look up the straight and you think, hang on, I can still see him. It's fantastic, and I think we're in for a very good year's motor racing. I'm thrilled.
Terrific stuff. Congratulations to Peter Brock. John Bowe, of course, finishing in third place. Johnson the winner, Brock second, Bowe third. Join us again for the third round of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship from Lakeside 3 weeks from now, April 2. See you there.